Okay, just want to thank Allison McDowell for sending me the Oliver Reiser archives that she accessed directly, physically on site, on location. And I had corresponded with her about that previously, so glad she was able to do that and share it with me. And I discovered a unpublished appendix that Oliver Reiser wrote about Andrija Puharich, corroborating that Puharich provided the empirical evidence for the what I call the actual matrix plan model of Oliver Reiser. So in this cache of documents, we have correspondence between Winifred Babcock, who was the wife of Charles Babcock, who had Charles Babcock was like a investor, lawyer type, Wall Street investor, lawyer type, but he had married the heir of R.J. Reynolds Tobacco, one of the heirs or something. And so this explains why Andrija Puharich was then funded by the Reynolds Foundation, and Puharich actually lived his final days on the Reynolds estate. So this provides a key connection between Puharich and Reiser and the research group that they were all part of the Theosophists connected to the United Nations going back to the 1930s. So there's correspondence in here going all the way back from there and then into the 70s, near the end of Oliver Reiser's life. So in this final appendix, he's saying that, well, Puharich explains that it's really the non-local spin of the hydrogen element that explains the consciousness factor that Puharich called Psi-Plasma in outer space. And so Reiser's argument was that life on Earth is actually controlled by outer space, by this connection between the Earth's atmosphere and the non-local consciousness of the hydrogen in outer space. And the best part was the correspondence between Reiser and Andrew A. Cochran, who did his master's thesis on quantum biology in 1965. And I'd been aware about Reiser referencing Cochran, but I didn't realize that Cochran was way ahead of his time in terms of quantum biology. And so his master's thesis is available online. So I was able to read that last night. It's only 50 pages long, but then he also did a follow-up. He had published research in 1971, and I'm not sure what happened to him after that. But he basically said he was supporting his family, so all of his research was just in his own free time, and so he didn't really have a lot of time. He actually, in his correspondence with Reiser, he said he wasn't associated with any university anymore, but he was working for the government for some kind of federal agency. So I don't know what that means, but anyway, the big insight of Andrew Cochran was what he called aromatic ring resonance. So aromatic ring quantum resonance. And this has been corroborated by Stuart Hameroff. In fact, this is the main argument of Stuart Hameroff, is that the microtubules and the tubulin inside the neurons actually replicate the aromatic rings of benzene. And you also find this in graphene. And this is Andrew Cochran is talking about. He calls it graphite in 1965. So essentially, he's saying that you're having these quantum wave, non-local energy being predominant in biology, because you have this circular resonance that's not just a linear chain of energy as information. And so, like in chlorophyll, he talks about chlorophyll and he compares it with the hemoglobin. And so he's basically saying the reason you have the it's now been proven that in photosynthesis is non-local quantum coherence. So it's faster than the speed of light. Superluminal energy transfer is information for photosynthesis. And his point is that you find the same thing in the red and the hemoglobin. You find this same, it's due to the aromatic ring resonance, like with benzene. So you have these double bonds that cause the energy to have a non-local macroquantum resonance of the molecule, whether it's hemoglobin or chlorophyll. And he argues the reason this happens is because if you study the heat capacity of the elements, you discover that life relies on the elements that have the lowest heat capacity at room temperature. And he said this proves what Schrödinger was claiming in 1945. So Andrew Cochran, he has this great way of explaining quantum physics where he's citing David Bohm, and so he's relying on David Bohm's parallel analysis with Louis de Broglie about the wave properties of matter. And so he's saying, well, David Bohm explains, you can either have matter as a momentum wave or as a particle with energy or a position. And so he's saying that for life, the momentum wave is predominant. And this is due to the low heat capacity of the elements. So he used something called Kropp's heat capacity, which is a standard chart of the heat capacity of the elements. And he's saying it's obviously not a coincidence that the primary elements of life, being hydrogen and carbon and nitrogen, they all are ranked very low in the table of heat capacity, of Kropp's heat capacity. And so he's saying that because of this, the wave, basically you have a higher ratio of displacement of energy as frequency for momentum compared to the mass of the particle. So you have a smaller mass with a higher displacement ratio of frequency, and this is what stabilizes life as but at the same it stabilizes life, but at the same time it causes the wave property of matter to be predominant in life as a room temperature superconducting quantum non-locality. So again, this is the same claim that Stuart Hameroff has been making with Roger Penrose. And so last night I sent Stuart Hameroff Andrew Cochran's master's thesis from 1965, and I said, well, he was way ahead of his time. And I don't know, I didn't check if Stuart Hameroff has cited Andrew Cochran before, but I did a Google Scholar search on citations of Andrew Cochran's research, and I think it's like 60 some citations. I just looked at the most recent ones since the past 10 years, so I'll have to recheck that again. But anyway, I can't find out what happened to Andrew Cochran after 1971. So that was 53 years ago. And so what's really fascinating about this is that it's not just limited to the neurons, because Stuart Hameroff, he's been focused on what's the truth of quantum consciousness in the neurons. But if you look at Qigong and non-Western meditation as alchemical transmutation, for example, Qigong Master Yan Xin, in his science experiments, he's saying, well, it's really the collagen, because the collagen, he says, forms this like piezoelectric superconducting energy. It becomes a macroquantum energy through the collagen of the whole body, and it stores that energy and then releases it. So collagen is piezoelectric, but the main protein in the collagen's the most common protein in the body, but it's composed of the microtubules, which is what Stuart Hameroff is arguing is the key for the consciousness of the neurons. When you have the pyramidical neurons, then you are able to store the information for the brain and retransmit it through the microtubules, because the pyramidal neurons, they have a different type of microtubule than the rest of the body, and that's what makes their microtubules have special information storage capacity. But in terms of the more fundamental level of the elements themselves, this is the emphasis of Andrew Cochran, is that if you look at just the hydrogen itself, as having a low heat capacity in when it's part of the protein, then that's what enables the quantum wave non-locality to be predominant in proteins. So the key secret of the microtubules that have been corroborated is that the ultrasound is the dominant frequency that resonates the microtubules as quantum coherence. So then they have a highest conductance of energy. It's a 3,000 times increase of energy at ultrasound because of this quantum coherence with the tubulin inside the microtubules as a negative refractive non-locality, or what Roger Penrose calls negative resonance. And so the ultrasound is also what activates the collagen in the body as a whole, as the most common protein in the body. But the point of Andrew Cochran is that all proteins in the body then have this low heat capacity, and so the protein in general is then resonated by the ultrasound, which would then interact with the hydrogen as a quantum consciousness, non-local quantum consciousness, and that this is what enables the transmutation of matter. So Andrew Cochran is saying that we need to change our definition of matter as having consciousness, non-local consciousness, based on the wave properties of matter, and then what enables it to organize into complex life is when you have these certain elements that have the low heat capacity, which means they're able to maintain the negative entropy or negentropy as complex molecules, and then become the building blocks of life based on that truth of the heat capacity of the elements. And so it's like really stunning research, this quantum aromatic ring resonance. The comparison of the microtubules with the benzene that Stuart Hameroff makes is he's talking about serotonin and tryptophan type molecules in the microtubules that then cause a terahertz resonance in the blue light frequency for consciousness, but that itself is relying on a superluminal photon resonance, acoustic photon resonance that's between the tubulin inside the microtubules. And so then you have this interaction between the microtubules and the mitochondria. So the mitochondria then absorb the light that the microtubules are emitting as the blue light from the serotonin and tryptophan type benzene ring molecules in the neurons. And so this is why Stuart Hameroff argues that this is why psychedelics actually can increase your frequency of consciousness, so it's more resonating with that blue light in the neurons, and can then cause neurogenesis, where you're actually able to build more neurons. And Dennis McKenna makes the same claim about psychedelics, natural psychedelics that are like the DMT-based plant medicine that he takes every year, the ayahuasca. And so, but the deeper message of Andrew Cochran is that this is fundamental to hydrogen itself in the universe. And this is what he was corresponding with Oliver Reiser, because Henry Morgenau had disagreed with Reiser and said, well, we can't publish this in the main currents of modern thought, because that was the UN-linked think tank that was this attempt to unify science with consciousness and lead the world as a new religion based on humanism and what they're calling cosmic humanism or transhumanism. And what I exposed as the actual matrix plan, guided by the music logarithmic spiral that Esther Watson-Tipple had constructed. And in this correspondence, there's more reference to Esther Watson-Tipple's music logarithmic spiral by Winifred Babcock. And so Winifred Babcock actually went to NASA, to the Huntsville, Alabama Space Center, and she got a tour, and then she worked with the NASA engineers, specifically James Beale, and then another guy that I can't remember his name. But so if you look up James Beale, sure enough, he's worked on this biofeedback consciousness research in tying it to outer space. And so, and then in my research on Puharich, we learned that, well, Puharich was doing paranormal research with NASA. He was working with NASA. So this is connects it all back together with this whole milieu of paranormal researchers that are working closely with physicists and engineers. And another one was Henry Morgenau. He was originally from Germany, but he was also at the Institute of Advanced Study at Princeton. And that's where this think tank had been started was through the Institute of Advanced Study at Princeton. And that's also why Einstein was involved with this think tank as well. So it corroborates that indeed this was a high-level think tank, what I call the actual matrix plan, but that even the main organizer of the plan, Oliver L. Reiser, the philosophy of science professor, he himself did not fully appreciate the quantum biology research of Andrew Cochran, but it also, when you look at the music logarithmic spiral, she's directly talking about the yin and yang as the number 2 and 3. And this is quite stunning, because they're on the cusp of discovering non-commutativity, but they can't quite grasp it. They're very, very close. And what she discovered was she argued that the yin was the minor scale as an undertone, the yang was the overtone as the major scale, and this is true, but she didn't quite realize that that makes the 2 and 3 non-commutative. Actually, she Esther Watson Tipple, she actually wrote Einstein about this and discussed this yin yang of music theory as the secret of the music logarithmic spiral. And then Professor Basil J. Hiley, he quotes Einstein saying that actually Heisenberg's non-commutative transition frequencies are the truth of reality, and this would require dismantling symmetric space-time, the symmetric space-time continuum. And so this is what would, this is the great leap into non-commutativity that was like the precipice of science that Einstein was staring into this precipice of non-commutativity. And Basil J. Hiley has now embraced it, along with Alon Khan. And that's pretty much it. Who else? Nobody else really, but it's the secret of the non-Western meditation as quantum biology. So I haven't finished going through the Oliver Reiser cache of documents, but I heard back from Allison, so she's fine with. I sent her my blog link, and but I don't expect to find much more, because Reiser, he did publish later. He was working on another book, and he never had that published. I think he passed on in 1984. So I will continue looking at the cache documents, and I will post anything more if I find out anything more. But I don't think I'm going to find anything more, because basically I think I've pushed the limits of what Reiser found on his own. But I think it's really Andrew Cochran who was like the secret star researcher in this milieu of researchers. And that Andrew Cochran, he relied on the fundamental principles of entropy that Schrödinger had first discussed in 1945. But Andrew Cochran also cites Pascual Jordan. And Pascual Jordan, he was the very first quantum biologist, or he was the first physicist to really focus on this. Quantum physics is the secret of consciousness and biology. But Pascual Jordan was emphasizing the non-commutativity as a asymmetric time frequency, the transitions frequencies. And Pascual Jordan, he was tasked, I can't say the K, tasked by Heisenberg's teacher Max Born to develop the matrices mathematics for the quantum physics, because the matrices math was non-commutative. And so that's why Pascual Jordan realized that this non-commutativity is the secret of quantum life. But then he made the mistake of getting swept into the whole Nazi evil. And so then his physics were just kind of ignored after that. And even though actually it turns out Pascual Jordan, he was trying to defend his Jewish science colleagues. He was trying to save them and everything. So It seems like he actually wasn't a bad guy, at the time. He was trying, he was trying to protect himself, I suppose, too. I don't know, but anyway. So it's I just hope people can appreciate Andrew Cochran's discovery about heat capacity and the aromatic quantum ring resonance of life. And I got my class pretty soon, so I got to get going.